Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Utah State University War Memorial Dedication Ceremony. On behalf of Utah State University, I'd like to thank you for joining us today to dedicate the War Memorial before you and to commemorate Veterans Day and the 100th anniversary of Armistice Day. As we begin this afternoon's ceremony, I'd like to recognize several distinguished guests joining us today. Lieutenant General Retired and Mrs. James C. King, Major General Retired and Mrs. Brian L. Tarbett, Mr. and Mrs. Matthew Fairbanks, grandson and granddaughter of sculptor Avard T. Fairbanks, Dr. F. Ross Peterson, Professor Emeritus of History and today's distinguished guest speaker, Mr. Jeff Call, President, Concrete Design, Mr. Charles Darnell, Associate Vice President, USU Facilities, Mr. Al Dubovic, Space Dynamics Laboratory. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand as the USU Army ROTC Color Guard presents the national colors and remain standing for the national anthem sung by USU vocalist Kylie Evans.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated. Utah State University has a proud history supporting the profession of arms, beginning with the Spanish-American War and every major conflict to the present day. As we dedicate this memorial, I'd like to welcome to the podium Craig Jessup, Dean, Kane College of the Arts, to share with us the genesis of this monument.
This is a humbling honor to have this opportunity to address you and be participating in this dedication of this war memorial. As a young sophomore, I entered this building and joined the ROTC program, and I'm very proud of the heritage that I have associated with this building. When I returned to Utah State in 2008, I had only been here a few weeks, and Mr. Stanley Kane came to me, architect for the campus and several other positions, and says, "Craig, I have something I think you want to see." When Old Main burned, these memorials that you see, which had hung in Old Main, had been removed and preserved and were in storage, along with the chimes in Old Main Tower. He said, "Would you like to see them?" He must have known that it would mean a great deal to me. And he took me to a storage unit, and I just couldn't believe the beauty of them and that they needed to be seen again and shared on this campus. We did a performance in 2011 of the Benjamin Britten War Requiem. The poet Wilfred Owen was a soldier in World War I, and Stanley made it possible. We put them on exhibition in the foyer of the concert hall for everyone to see them. And knowing that sometime in the future we might have this opportunity of bringing them. So Stanley, first of all, thank you for preserving them, to bringing them to our attention. You're one of the big reasons we're here today. Thank you. And then I'm going to let Katie in her remarks will tell the rest of the story of how this all came about. I would like to thank the donors who made this all possible. And I'm going to read their names, which are also on the memorial, but I want to publicly thank them. The Avard T. Fairbanks Art Springs Foundation, Utah State University Facilities Management, the State of Utah World War I Commission, the Utah State University Space Dynamics Lab, the Utah State University College of Agriculture and Applied Science, Jack B. Parson Ready Mix, Concrete Designs Concepts, Lieutenant General James C. King, U.S. Army retired, and Pam King, Major General Brian L. Tarbett, Utah National Guard, retired, and Mary Tarbett. I'm proud to say that Renee and I have also contributed. The Utah State University King College of the Arts, the Utah State University Nora Eccles Harrison Museum of Art, the Utah State University Quinney College of Natural Resources, the Utah State University Huntsman School of Business, the Utah State University Merrill Kazir Library, the Utah State University Department of History, the Utah State University Department of Military Science, ROTC, Stanley Kang, American Institute of Architects. This project is supported in part by Utah State History, with funding from the state of Utah and the Utah Division of Veterans and Military Affairs. We must never forget why this memorial is here and what a fitting day that it would be dedicated. On this day, associated with World War I, is the famous In Flanders Fields, this poppy that many people are wearing, written by John McCrae, May of 1915. You hear of it, but you rarely hear the poem. I would like to conclude by reading this poem. In Flanders fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place. And in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders field. I am thrilled to know that every cadet who passes through these doors must first pass this memorial in remembrance of those who have gone before. Thank you, donors who made this all possible.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to welcome to the podium Katie Lee Coven, Executive Director and Chief Curator of USU's Nora Eccles Harrison Museum of Art, to share a brief history of the individual pieces of the monument.
It is such an honor to have worked on the creation of this memorial and to be a part of this ceremony today. My involvement is due to serving as chair for the Public Art and Sculpture Committee here at Utah State University. I have never been involved in creating a memorial, and this has been such a wonderful, rewarding experience. This USU War Memorial was made possible, as Craig said, by Stanley Kane's efforts to have the plaques stored, the Fairbanks family offering this wonderful sculpture as a donation, and Dean Craig Jessup's suggestion of seeing if we could bring these plaques and sculptures together into a memorial. After his suggestion, the museum accepted the gift of the Fairbanks sculpture, and I pulled together a committee of people to help me with this effort, and really didn't know what would come of it. I started with Tammy Proctor, professor of history and specialist of World War I. She suggested Major Clint Coleman, since we needed to determine if this was of interest to our men in service here at Utah State University. And I contacted Jim Huppy, landscape architect for the university, because I knew he would be able to consider possible locations, and ultimately Jim was the designer of the memorial. Jim designed this memorial based on the various size plaques that we had and the sculpture, and we intentionally left space for possible future plaques that commemorate other previous wars. Jim also oversaw the construction effort, which was not an easy task and a very short time frame, and he did a wonderful job. So thank you, Jim. I want to speak briefly about the sculpture and the plaques that comprise this USU War Memorial, starting with the Victorious American Doughboy by Avard Fairbanks. A doughboy was an informal term for a member of the United States Army or Marine Corps, especially used to refer to members of the American Expeditionary Forces of World War I, but initially it was used in the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 1848. Avard Fairbanks was born in Utah in 1897 to John B. and Lily Fairbanks, and he had an early exposure to the world of art. His father was a painter and teacher at what is Brigham Young University. His success as an artist and professor inspired Avard to follow a similar path. 3 of his sculptures are at the United States Capitol, the state capitals in both Utah and Wyoming, as well as numerous other locations around the country. Possibly his most well-known artistic contribution was designing the ram symbol that we all know on Dodge's vehicles, that is. Fairbanks studied at the Art Student League of New York, beginning at the young age of 13, and in Paris at 17. He received a bachelor's from Yale University, a master's from University of Washington, a Guggenheim Fellowship, and a PhD in anatomy from University of Michigan. And he was also a professor there at Michigan. At the close of World War I, he created monuments to memorialize the men who fought in the war, and the doughboy was one of them. What is unique about this sculpture is that it is the working model, meaning he used this sculpture as reference for scaling up to create larger sculpture. So it's really the artist's true inspiration and creativity that is put forth in the working model and used to create those later and larger editions. In 1947, Dr. Fairbanks was appointed Dean of University of Utah and asked to organize the College of Fine Arts, and he moved his family there and remained there the rest of his life. We have 2 other sculptures by Avard Fairbanks on the USU campus, the busts of Lincoln and Abraham outside of Old Main. Shifting to our memorial plaques, a plaque for the USS Maine is on the east side and is the oldest war currently represented in the memorial, so I'll start with it. The USS Maine sank in 1898 and was one of the first United States battleships to be constructed. The vessel's destruction in the Cuba harbor of Havana was a catalyst in bringing war between the United States and Spain. The loss of the ship was a shock to the United States. Remember the Maine became the battle cry for the United States military forces in 1898. The USS Maine rested on the floor of the Havana Harbor until 1913, when it was brought up out of the water. The wreckage was revisited to determine the reason for its resolve. And most of the bronze was taken off of the ship before it was sent further out to sea for a more fitting funeral. About 1,000 plaques, such as this one on the east side of this memorial, along with other souvenirs, were made from the bronze of the USS Maine. Each plaque is numbered and stamped on the reverse. This piece is numbered 396. So we literally have a piece of the USS Maine here at Utah State University, which I think is very spectacular. The image was designed for the United States government by sculptor Charles Keck and cast in New York by a foundry called Williams Foundry. And it renders a soldier holding a shield that says Patriots, Devotion, and reads, In Memoriam, USS Maine destroyed in Havana Harbor, February 15, 1898. And along the bottom, this tablet is cast from metal recovered from the USS Maine. We don't have as much information about the artistic attributes of the World War I and World War II plaques, but I want to discuss them as much as I can. The World War I plaque has a beautiful rendering of an angel. This is the one on the north side. A beautiful rendering of an angel extending what I presume to be an olive branch to a fallen soldier. The plaque was dedicated by the class of 1919 and reads, in honor of the men from the Utah Agricultural College who died for their country in the World War 1917 to 18. And then it lists these 29 men's names. Wilford W. Anderson, Horace R. Argyle, George B. Cook, Robert Roy DeWitt, Lawrence H. Evans, Ray Gowers, Edwin M. Gray, Walter B. Hanks, Melton G. Hansen, Barney T. Justison, Joseph Morrison, Ray D. Peterson, Clayton Preston, Guy B. Alexander, Lewis H. Rowe, Edward H. Walters, Joseph C. Whitmore, Wilmore, Fred H. Grant, William O. Funk, J. H. Haig, Thorvald Rowley, Melvern H. Toombs, Amos G. Hatfield, Maurice K. Miles, Leroy Eyre, Dewey H. Otteson, George P. Parkinson, J. Randall Draper, Frank Raymond Osler. The World War II plaque on the west side has a beautiful embellishment around the edges and only text and reads, in memory of the men of Utah State Agricultural College who died for freedom in World War II. The life of man is short, but patriots who die for freedom make it long. Not in years, but in duty done. They belong to a family, to a country, to an age, but not to them alone. Their deeds, transcending race, span the generations and live always as a rich history in the hearts of free peoples, presented by the class of 1946. The south facade has a donor plaque, which we hope can be shifted if needed in the future for other plaques that are gifted or purchased to commemorate other wars, because we all know that there have been many others. We view this memorial in its current state as the beginning of a memorial that will evolve and memorialize other wars that have impacted Utah State University and the state of Utah and the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd now like to welcome to the podium our guest speaker, Dr. F. Ross Peterson, Professor Emeritus of History to share USU's contribution to the profession of arms and the significance of this memorial.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this program. I consider it a genuine honor because in the work that has been done in the past about Utah State's history, the university, one of the things that, whether it was Dr. Joel Ricks or A.J. Simmons or Bob Parson, we pretty much agree on is in many ways World War I saved Utah State. And that in and of itself is an interesting history. And that's one of the reasons why I think on the December day in 1983 when Old Main caught on fire and we were occupying, what do we take, what do you take, what do you take? And the fire people said, your bodies, get out of here. One of the professors went down to the first floor to try to recover these plaques and others. And they were ushered out, and of course the fire was contained on the north end, and they avoided the water damage. But in the restoration of the building, as was mentioned, they were able to save these, and we found them. And it is absolutely one of the greatest things in the world for me to have them exhibited here again, and to have the Fairbanks sculptor with them. Let me talk to you just a little bit about Utah State and World War I. That's what I was asked to do. And it came at a very, very interesting time in our history. As most of you know, the war in Europe started in August of 1914. The U.S. did not get involved until April of 1917. And for a lot of people, it was just a question of when. For a lot of people, it was a question of why. But nevertheless, there were preparations that were being made from time to time. And Utah State was suffering under a law that the legislature passed in 1905 that restricted our academics and made it so it was impossible to grow. They even tried to take extension away from us when federal dollars came. And so there was a real kind of conflict going on between the northern people here and the rest of the state. And we were fortunate in this that World War I changed that because the governor at the time, Governor Simon Bamberger, the first Jewish American governor in the United States, got in touch with E.G. Peterson, the president of Utah State, and made a suggestion. And that was to let Utah State be the banner school for the preparation in World War I. We already had ROTC, and we were working on some other things that would get us engaged, and so consequently they made an arrangement with the federal government and the military that our facilities would be open for use by whatever branch of the military needed them, and that was right now. And so from April of 1917, our campus was transformed. The ROTC program was enhanced. Pretty soon there were over 400 cadets. We had 800 students admitted as what was called the Student Army Training Corps, and 680 troops who were also students were brought in from Nebraska, Wyoming, and California to be taught here at Utah State in military as well as other academics. Old Main's basement, the auditorium of Old Main, became barracks. The Mechanical Arts Building, which used to be south of Old Main, became the officers' quarters. The Smart Gym, which is now, I don't know what's there, I can't keep track, Living Learning Center where some students live, that became a barracks and an exercise area. The third floor of Old Main, which had a gym in it, was also used. And so it became really, and this quad was where they drilled, this became almost a fortress for military training. In 1917, once again, Bamberger and Peterson got together, and they decided to use World War I as a way to get the legislature to change the status of Utah State by using our relationship with the federal government to enhance our ability to train these troops. And out of it, they got appropriations for what became the Animal Husbandry Building, the Plant Industry Building, and the Engineering Building. In other words, the buildings around the quad. And they were mess halls, and they were all designed by engineers that at a time they could be transferred into classrooms. And so consequently, they began these projects that were taking place throughout 1918, building Utah State into a legitimate physical plant that could contain and educate a university. The campus, when you read the papers at the time and look at the student newspapers and look at the involvement of President Peterson, it was a beehive of activity of all the military people, the students were attracted, and all the construction projects. I think it was one of the most important times of our history. And not only were so many students trained in the military, but it's also worthy to note that beginning with when the United States instituted the draft for 21, 22-year-olds, and then later expanded it to 18 to 45-year-olds, that meant that a lot of our students were plucked right from the classrooms and ended up going to Europe. And of course, has been mentioned, and Katie read the names of those that had passed away, and down on the courthouse is a list of what community everyone was from, who was from the county, who died in World War I. In one of the newspapers it says this: when UAC, we were the Utah Agricultural College then, opens its doors fall quarter, it will be a veritable West Point. It appears from the extraordinary done in military work at this institution that it is second only to West Point. Shortly before the armistice, in 1918, an international influenza epidemic has swept around the world, and it hit into Cache Valley, and a transition was made. Old Main then became an influenza hospital, where citizens from the valley, as well as the soldiers or other people that contracted the disease, could be isolated. And many people died in that building, and many were saved. But it had a transition from October of 1918 well into 1919. W.H. Leary, the dean of the Utah Law School, who was also on the State Council of Defense, said, UAC has done more for this nation in furthering its war program on the farm and in service than any other institution. Now, you know, that's patting yourself on the back, but in a lot of respects it was true, because another thing that I didn't go into is our extension services and all our agriculture people. I mean, even the front of Old Main was turned into a victory garden. And people were taught what could be grown, what was needed, and it helped a lot in feeding the people of the world, not just of the United States. But most important, I think, Utah State emerged from this experience revered, transformed, respected, and expanded. And a number of the people that came here and trained, just like in World War II when the GI Bill, then they came back after the war to go to school. One of the things that came out of it was they were able, President Peterson, to work again with the Army at the time to expand and maintain the ROTC program. Another thing that they learned tremendously from the experience in working with the federal government is how to continue to work with extension and other programs. And out of this, he created the National Summer School that brought people from all over the state and the region living on the quad or in the buildings so they could be educated, because Utah State learned during World War I, with the help of the military, logistically how to feed and clothe and house thousands of people. And they did that throughout the 1920s. And then, of course, when the Depression came, the Utah State was in a great position to have further buildings and relationship because of and maintaining their relationship with the federal government. I want to conclude, though, because all of this sounds good, but I think we have to look at those 29 individuals, or the individuals at the courthouse, and every one of the people has a story. And every one of those stories is important. And there's one that's near and dear to me. A man by the name of Hiram Olson lived out in College Ward. A young guy. His dad was sick a lot. He had to help his mother with the farm. He was the oldest of the children. Utah was very, very slow to adopting public education. And so a lot of these young men that tried to get up here to Utah State had never been to high school. We didn't have public high schools in this valley till 1913-14. And so this is just right before the war. And Hiram always had this dream, but he worked his off with sugar beets and helping that family. And what happened, of course, is after so often, you read the paper every time the draft board met, and on July 15th, 1918, his name was in the paper, and on the 25th, he went down to the courthouse, and he and 20-some other young men from the valley got on the trolley that took him down to Center Street, down to what's now Cafe Sabor, put him on a train up to Pocatello, and they found themselves 2.5 days later at Fort Lewis in Washington. They were there 2 weeks, and then he was sent, I think in part because of his hard work, but also as a marksman, to Camp Kearney down by San Diego for 10 days, trained there, then got on a train all the way to Camp Mills in New York. Got on a ship, and just a few days later, he's in Europe. Less than 4 months from the time he got that draft notice, for the last 6 weeks of that war, he was in France. The great thing about Hiram Olson, and this is a lesson to all of you, write and keep your letters, and don't do it with your damn thumbs. Write, so that there's a record of what you've done and what you've accomplished and how you feel. And Hiram did. And by darn, it's not the best English in the world, and it's not the best from his parents. And I've got his Hiram's nephew here and a grandnephew with us. But I want to tell you, I want to just quote in conclusion from his letters of 1918. He said, "You asked me to tell you how I like this country. It's a pretty nice country, but give me the USA. We got so much rain and mud over here, and I'd like it better if I could talk French. Well, Mother, I've got plenty to do nowadays, picking the lice out of my undershirt. Well, if it's a long time between my letters, don't blame me. Don't think that I have forgot you or home. I just began to realize I've got as good a home as anybody would want." And then a letter on October 26 from his mother back to him. "The schools and meetings and picture shows and all other gatherings have been closed for a long time on account of the influenza. It sure has caused lots of deaths everywhere. So far, we've been lucky not to get it." On Armistice Day, his folks wrote to him. But he wrote back to them the last letter he sent from France on November 15th. Of course, this is a day when he got the letters, you don't know. I mean, sometimes he says this: "I've been on over the top for the second time, and I guess it will be the last time, as it looks like we might get peace. At least I hope so. I would have written sooner, but it is impossible to write when you're at the front. We're stopping in an old French town that we took from the Germans, which had been, with French people in it, had been occupied since the war started. They sure was glad to see us Yanks." Well, on Christmas Eve, his folks hadn't heard from him, and his dad penned another letter. He said, "I saw a piece in the paper that said if boys were needed at home, they might be released to come home if I can get an affidavit asking for your release. I guess you're ready to come home, ? Well, dear son, I'll close for this time, praying to God to bless you and continue to watch over you in the future he has in the past." What his folks didn't know is that Hiram had died the week before of typhoid fever. So everyone has a story. And when you walk by and see that doughboy, remember the stories. The people that gave the last full measure and those that served with them and came home to create for us the country that we enjoy today. So we're very grateful to have this, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. At this time, Lieutenant General Retired King and Major General Retired Tarbett will commemorate today's ceremony by placing a wreath at the base of the War Memorial. The act of laying a wreath at memorials is a time-honored military tradition practiced around the world and understood in every culture. The floral tributes of the wreath bespeak both the beauty and the brevity of life. It is a simple, solemn recognition and honor of those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our nation and our security. The red, white, and blue flowers represent the United States and our country's solemn respect for the fallen. The red is symbolic of the blood shed by our nation's service members and their valor in defense of the United States. White symbolizes the purity of their sacrifice and their devotion to duty. Blue symbolizes the perseverance and vigilance of a nation to remember its fallen service members and their sacrifices. We honor the memory of our service members and their sacrifices, lest they be forgotten.
I've got the responsibility of concluding today's ceremony. Lieutenant General Mrs. King, thank you for being here. Major General Mrs. Tarbett, good to see you again. Thank you for being here. Honored guests, distinguished visitors, thank you all for being here today. I'm mindful of the cold, believe me, I'm mindful of the cold, but I do have a few comments that I'd like to share with you. Professor Peterson, I promise you that the cadets of Air Force and Army ROTC here at Utah State University remember. I love the fact that we will have this memorial to pass by every day and remember, to think about the stories of the names of those who are on the plaques of this memorial. I have the opportunity to travel quite frequently for the military, and as I do so, sometimes I'm in uniform, and as I travel, I'm constantly being told, thank you for your service. Even here in this wonderful community in which we live, Logan, I'm hearing it quite often, thank you for your service. Sometimes we'll go out to eat together as an office, and it's almost embarrassing sometimes because people will buy our lunch for us, and we won't know it until it's time for us to leave, and then they've already left, and we can't thank them. But it's heartwarming to know that we have that support. It's a good thing that we have that support because we speak of citizen soldiers, because we are the military. The military is us. There should not be that divide, although over the years there has grown to be that divide with 1%, less than 1% now volunteering to serve. But I love hearing thank you for your service because when I hear that as a military member, my immediate thought is no thank you for the country that you helped create, for the good place that this is, because there are many reasons to fight. And we talk about those things. But if you don't have a love for this place and a love for this country, then you're missing out, because there's so much to love. And I thank the citizens of this country. We thank the citizens of this country because you make it worth fighting for. And so when you thank us, we appreciate that. I want to talk about, in brief conclusion, some remarks in 1946 from General Jonathan M. Wainwright, who was the hero of the Philippines. He was a POW in Japanese prison camps for 3 years and 2 months, and later a Congressional Medal of Honor recipient. As he came home from that experience when he was liberated, he wrote a letter to those who were later under his command, and he gave them this charge: as you return home as veterans, you'll be citizens again. And this is what I want you to know. Here's what he wrote. To all personnel being discharged from the Army of the United States, you are being discharged from the Army today, from your Army. It is your Army because your skill, patriotism, labor, courage, and devotion have been some of the factors which make it great. You have been a member of the finest military team in history. You have accomplished miracles in battle and supply. Your country is proud of you, and you have every right to be proud of yourselves. You have seen, in the lands where you worked and fought, and where many of your comrades died, what happens when people of a nation lose interest in their government. You have seen what happens when they follow false leaders. You have seen what happens when a nation accepts hate and intolerance. We are all determined that what happened in Europe and in Asia must not happen to our country. Back in civilian life, you will find that your generation will be called upon to guide our country's destiny. Opportunity for leadership is yours. The responsibility is yours. The nation which depended on your courage and stamina to protect it from its enemies now expects you, as individuals, to claim your right to leadership, a right you earned honorably and which is well-deserved. Start being a leader as soon as you put on your civilian clothes. If you see intolerance and hate, speak out against them. Make your individual voices heard, not for selfish things, but for honor and decency among men, for the rights of all people. Remember, too, that no American can afford to be disinterested in any part of his government, whether it is county, city, state, or nation. Choose your leaders wisely. That is the way to keep ours the country for which you fought. Make sure that those leaders are determined to maintain peace throughout the world. You know what war is. You know that we must not have another. As individuals, you can prevent it if you give to the task which lies ahead the same spirit which you displayed in uniform. Accept and trust the challenge which it carries. I know that the people of America are counting on you. I know that you will not let them down. Goodbye to each and every one of you, and to each and every one of you, good luck. These words are relevant to today. So let's support each other, the citizens and the soldiers, the citizens and the airmen and the Marines and the sailors. We are united in this country, and all the geographic diversity and all the various types of diversity that we have. The beauty and the genius of our country is e pluribus unum, out of many, one America. Thank you for being here today. As that beautiful wreath says, we remember, and let's continue to always remember. Thank you.